This lesson on hair is really a more advanced lesson, which is meant to be preceded by a more fundamental lesson on hair. Hair grows. We've got to first discuss a few things. That hair grows on the head, in patterns, and lays down in general directions. Some types of hair have round shafts, and others have flat shafts. The round is generally less coarse and straighter, and the flat hair is usually more coarse and curlier. It was the artist's job to observe and simplify nature. We study the masters because they observed and simplified nature first. Botticelli would be the first on my list to observe how he handled hair curls. The clue, that Botticelli provides the viewer is the strap around the hair. It shows the tubular forms. So, let's see. Let's get a pen here. So we see that the hair the first curl that we observe is this major one here. Was this major tube. Then we see that we have this tube here. Forming these patterns. Okay. So at this point, we're not going to be concerned with the undulations of the hair. We're going to just be concerned with the patterns for today. I think it would be well to observe the Rococo patterns. The shapes are derived from nature. In particular, this is the canthus leaf that was first adorned on Greek temples. We see here, we see a motion that's moving and another wrapping. Okay. Now this would be a hollow, and this would be a boss. Okay, so it's rounded and convex, while this is rounded and concave. And it's always in juxtaposition. You'd go from a twisting motion with a counter motion and another twist, inward and outward, followed with a hollow and a boss. Nature does not do parallel lines. Nature, okay, parallel lines are death. If you want death, you do parallel lines or slightly convex. Concave, I'm sorry. And that gives us, there we see that happens when forms start shriveling after they've died, like leaves or skin on bones. But it's well to understand the basis of the acanthus leaf patterns and the hair that Bernini and Alphonse Mucha used, Botticelli, is that there's always at least a slight slit in the line. It may be very gradual, but it's slight. And what I call the belly of the curl, this area, would be this line in here. You have a line like this, and a line like this. And ever so gently, there might be a twist with a slight hollow. Always followed by another counter turn. So you have this shape, which can form a leaf. It can also form an arm. Or a forearm. Okay. So we see the canthus leaf here. And noticing the hollows. Notice where the hollows are placed and the bosses are placed. So this form comes out with a boss on top of a hollow. Okay. It's good to understand and start studying the rhythm of such things. Here we have a more simplified version. We'll start paying attention to the hollows and the bosses. Again, we have the boss and the hollow. Boss and hollow. Nothing's parallel. Well, of course, we have this parallel. Juxtaposition to this parallel. But it always comes up with a slight twist. Some say that this pattern actually originates in Persia. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't argue. It might have even originated in India. I'm not one to say. Again, now we start getting a little fancier. And placed in here, we have some nice openings, like hair. But they're always stylized somewhat. Again, another. So it's when you start wanting to study Bernini, you don't just study hair coils, you study the canthus leaf and you study rococo. Now, I have the hair coils, hair in three categories. I have first the twisted teardrop, which this would be your twisted teardrop. Oops. This would be the twisted teardrop. Again, the hollow with the boss. Now, we have the second would be your coil, your hair coil, or tubular coil, which would be this coil. We can't see it in this illustration coming off this. And it would be, but this would be your broken coil. Really where you have your broken coil is where the hair hits the shoulder and breaks or towards the end of the curl where the curl starts to unravel. So that would be your broken tubular coil too. So this coil, you have the hollow and the boss, but with a twist. So you not only want this shape, but you want this shape with a bit of a twist coming through it. So the line would be twisting. You might use a hollow in the boss shape to demonstrate the twist of the curl. Okay. Again, Bernini in his clays demonstrates the twisted teardrop. Now, it's fundamental to look at the overall form. If we didn't have a solid form of this shape, it would just look like a bunch of snakes at the end of his beard. But he keeps that bottom line, nothing penetrating over that bottom line. So then we have these shapes, which would be the space around the beard. There's no such thing as negative shape. It's space or solid or negative shape and positive shape, but you don't have negative space. Why artists use that term, I don't know. I think it's just kind of stupid, to tell you the truth. Shows you that. Okay, now, so this shape in here keeps the eye rested. Another thing you want to think about, particularly in sculpture where sculpture composition is extremely weak in this day and age, is the weight of the eye. There always has to be something that holds the eye. If it ends up being too snake-like around the chin, then it's very disturbing to the eye. So these become like snakes. And then we get this very disturbing look. Let's move this up. Okay, so we're on to Bernini. Bernini 1, we're in the clays. Let's see where we are now. Okay, we're here. Okay, so we can go ahead and throw this drawing away. Let's throw all these away. Okay. So, hide that. Hide that. Okay. So you want this in here, this layer, this area to always cause your eye to rest. You want this with no matter how how delicate the curls are. Okay, now, complicated. I'm sorry. So let's throw that layer away. Another layer. And we can throw that one away. And we're on to another Bernini. Now, even the masters this is an example of where hair, and it looks like a wig, and most likely is a wig, but Bernini is showing off, and it really does look like a clump of snakes on his head. Of course, he fashioned the what would you call this, lace motif. Most likely somebody else did that for him. It was just too complicated, too time consuming. There are people who are specialists with the motif, with the lace motif in marble. The oldest one, about 5 years ago, was in his 90s and was probably the last one in Italy to know how to do it. So it may be lost. But again, let's examine the basic shapes. Here we have a tube. That is your tube. Here again is a remnant of a tube. You might call this a broken tube or a half tube. And here again is your twisted teardrop. Very similar to the Rococo pattern that we were talking about earlier. Okay, he simplified the shapes and made them elegant. Again, the shape against the head is defined by the shadows. Most of this is twisted teardrop. Back of here is a coil, but that's probably from the back side. Again, twisted teardrop. Twisted teardrop. And here's a part coil right here. That's a coil. So understanding those basic shapes, and I have to say, literally, the best way to learn this is to carve in marble and to do direct carving and free carving, because it does for your eye what weightlifting does for your muscles. The marble is resistant material and causes you to really, really observe. Enough of that now. So you see the twisted coil and the half tube. Okay. Now here is the ultimate lesson on Bernini, because it has the coil, the broken coil, and the twisted teardrop. We can observe the coil. When it hits the shoulder, the coil tends to break apart, but this is a tube. All this is just a tube with the coils. Okay, so we have the tube. Here again is your broken tubular coil. Started, see, your coil comes down this way. We're looking at the basic shapes. Okay, that's your coil. And then it breaks at the shoulder and becomes this tube. You see that because he's defining the tube here. Okay? And he uses the foil of the hollow. He uses a boss shape, which would be the convex shape. And he puts the twist in with the hollow. Okay? Again, you twist a teardrop, but in the form of a tube. It tends to be tubular. But look how he twists and keeps the direction always twisting. And there's a big hollow, followed by a convex shape, and so on. Wouldn't hurt for you to trace some of these and get a feel for how there we go. Here's a tube right here. Okay. Okay. Now, this was Bernini's Mistress, and this is a more natural. But even though it's natural, it still has a slight style. One thing that painters do, and good sculptors, is that the hairline in here is always blended with the scalp. Now, modern sculptors, because they don't carve so often, have a problem because they use photography, have a tendency to make sharp edges everywhere. And nature does not do sharp edges everywhere. It's a combination of hard and soft. So he controls our focus by his edges. And in sculpture, you want to avoid going deep too fast. You do this by carving boss shapes, and only when you're really sure you should carve the hollows out. Again, a twisted teardrop followed by a tube. This is a tube. And we get the hint that it's a tube by this D shape. Here's my first reference to the D shapes. Again, reverse D shape, D shape. I mentioned D shape and diamond shapes. For brevity's sake, I'll just do this very quickly so you get a sense of the hair. Okay. Another way you can create a line is the way the hair will cast the shadow on the head. That's a line too. Okay. But notice the shape, like in here. Always, the centers are always a little bit off. You never get this shape. You always get this shape slipped. And maybe a turn and a twist. Okay. Now we're moving right along, making some great progress. We can throw that one away. Throw this one away. Throw this one away. And we could throw Botticelli away. And one more Bernini. Okay, this is a really good example of how you can mix the hair onto the face, plot the hair against the face. Again, there's your twisted teardrop. And look at that. That is exactly like the canthus leaves that we saw. Now here's a tube, ever so slight tube, coming out and ending with a teardrop. And it uses these hollow shapes to reinforce the boss shape. See right here, a little hollow to put a twist in the boss. Again, you twist a teardrop. But the overall shape of the head is always well defined. It's always simplified. Keep that in mind, that the overall shape should be unified. Let's see. Again, the neck, D shape, D shape, D shape. See what I'm saying? Here's a D shape. Okay. Throw that away. Throw that away. Musha. Now Musha simplified the hair by creating a single pattern. He very rarely, and this is on one occasion that he puts the twist inside there. But if we look closely, we see the D shape, another D shape, more of a diamond shape. But he simplifies the shape. Now all you have to do is look at Musha's work. And again, slipped pattern, the unparalleled lines. See the unparalleled lines there? Those little D shapes, these inner shapes right here. So, I don't know what that is. Okay. Oh, that's what we're looking at. Okay. So we want to study the hair. So the first thing to do is to simplify what we're looking at. See, opacity 100%. Okay. So let's put the opacity down so we can see a little clearer the shapes of the hair. Now in here we have again hair coil. Again, another hair coil coming down. So we actually have two directions in this coil because we have this movement of hair moving down here. And it's actually larger because it falls in the back. Let's see if I can explain that a little clearer. So we want to first of all look at the overall movement with the hair. And it's falling in a triangular pattern. It's falling basically like that. Or more like that. Their head, okay? Going over the shoulder, and then the shoulder is in front. So I'm saying for now, rather than getting, if you're drawing, don't worry about the colors of the hair. Worry about the outside pattern of the hair. So we have basically, and always make the shape as elegant as possible. Because even in nature, if you look down and observe closely, the patterns will be the same, will have the same qualities. Excuse me. Here again, we could use a D pattern to emphasize that. And this could be a diamond or a D. There we have a diamond pattern. And when the hair starts breaking apart, the curls,
make sure they don't follow me. Okay, let's go at the back door. Good girl. Good girl, come on. Good girl. Back door, come on.
again, here's a D, and here's a diamond. Simplifying the shapes. Here's a broken coil. With a D. Again, a broken coil. And notice how the broken coil happens at the bottom, where the springiness of the curl starts to unfold. And it's good to practice doing this a lot. Here you got diamond, so that you can understand. Now simplify. You don't want to put in all these little hits. But
I don't know if it was gunshots.
It's close to the first, so they're probably doing firecrackers.
Oh, okay. It didn't sound like it.
I'm doing a little demonstration here, sweetie. Okay. So anyway, let's see what that starts to look like. Now for pattern, I don't want to really mess with these inside things too much. I'm just more or less concerned about the outside perimeters. Okay. Again, soft. Okay. Pay attention to the directions of the lines are where you can get elegance. Okay. This will kind of conclude to get you started. I'll be coming up with a fuller lesson a little later on, but this will get you by for right now. I hope this helps. Please feel free to ask me any questions you want. Okay?